So, should I address you as Mr. Leonard Marcus?
You could call me Leonard.
Leonard, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, that's
Leonard Marcus.
Yeah.
Hi, welcome to the National Quiz Choice Online News, saying Hyatt hotels around the world. And here I have a great guest, a very well-known reviewer for books, especially illustrations for children in New York. And here is Mr. Leonard Marcus himself. He is one of the world's leading authorities on children's books and illustration. His books include Margaret Wise Brown, Awakened by the Moon, Dear Genius, The Wand in the Word, and Minders of Make-Believe. He writes for New York Times Book Review and The Horn Book, and is a trustee of the Eric Carle Museum for Picture Book. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, that's right. Nice to be here with you.
And Mr. Leonard, many have asked, what does it take to be a critic in your own field? Yes.
Oh, well, I write about children's books, and to do that, you need to have strong memories of your own childhood, I think, and a familiarity with other children, and an awareness of the many books that are being published for children these days. In the U.S., 12,000 new books are published every year, so it's a big field to keep track of. And I think if you have an insight into art and literature and what children are like, then you can write well about children's books.
And Mr. Leonard, could you also share with us how did you choose to become a critic in children's books?
Well, I felt very drawn to the medium of children's books because it's one in which stories are told both in words and pictures. So it's as if they are bilingual. I've always loved visual art, and I've always loved literature, so to write about children's books gave me the opportunity to write about two art forms coming together in a unique way.
Amazing. And speaking of art forms, could you give at least three, points or advice for those who wish to aspire to be a critic?
They should have other means of support when they are starting, because it's not a highly lucrative profession, but it's one that you have to love to do. It's really about feeling drawn to this particular art form and wanting to know more about it, and wanting to share your best thoughts about it, which is what I try to do when I write for the New York Times and for other publications. If somebody really wants to write about children's books, the first thing they might consider doing is starting a blog, because that's easy to do. It's a way of getting published. And there have been people who have started that way, who went on to have careers in print media.
What's the future like and holds for illustrations and picture books, and as well as children's books? Do you see that e-book will become more prominent, or and as well as physical books, print books, will it still continue to exist?
That's really the question of the moment, and I think people don't know for sure, but I feel convinced that picture books will continue to exist alongside e-books, because there are some things that a picture book can do that an e-book cannot do. For example, it can be almost any size that the artist wants it to be, which means that for a little child who, as we know from psychology, learns about the world through sensory experience, touching things, feeling them, as well as looking at them, biting them sometimes. Little children are going to want books that are varied in size as they relate to the different stories. Big books about elephants, little books about bunnies and mice. It makes it a more interesting experience, and it also gives the child the chance to hold the book in their hand, turn the pages, and have the sense of mastery of having been able to advance the story physically on their own steam. Digital books, on the other hand, have the capacity to be as long as you want them to be. They can make things move, which can be fascinating, or it can be dull if it's not done well. So they each have strengths as art forms, and I think as we come to understand the digital potential more, those distinctions will become clearer to everyone.
And Mr. Leonard, what advice would you give for parents choosing books for their children? Should parents choose books for their children, or should the children choose the books for themselves?
Well, sometimes the young children wouldn't know what to choose. Often the parents don't know what to choose either. So, one piece of advice is a good way to start is for parents to think about the books that they remembered from their own childhood, if there are some, and to share those with their children, to pass it on to the next generation. Because one of the most important things about reading to a child is that the parent care about the book that he or she is reading, because that feeling is then communicated, and that's the most important part of the experience. But then you don't want to just get stuck with books from the past. And in the US, and I'm sure in other countries too, one of the great resources that parents have at their disposal are public libraries, where children's librarians are often very, very knowledgeable about the books that have come along in recent years, and can make recommendations based on the individual child's interests and preferences. Because no book is for every child, and a parent would know their child well enough to be able to guide a librarian toward making a good selection. Of course, there are people like me who publish their opinions, and many parents have read things that I've written and other critics have written. The Times and many other publications can be found online these days. So there's a tremendous amount of information available for free. The parents just have to make a little bit of effort to find it.
To end this, what would be the one book that you have grown up with? Would you recommend?
Well, I have to say that one of my big discoveries, both as a critic and a parent, has been that there's no book which is right for every child. And the proof of it is that in the US and elsewhere, the first book that millions of children know in their lives is called Goodnight Moon. It's a kind of lullaby that parents read to their children at night. And these days, if you are a parent of a new child, 5 of your friends are probably going to give you copies of the same book. It's that popular. But when my son was born, I had written a biography of the author of Goodnight Moon, so I was very attached to this book myself. When my son was born, I thought, oh, now I can read Goodnight Moon to him. But what do you know? He found it extremely boring. The only child in America, most likely. And that taught me that you really have to be flexible, and you can try the classics, but if they don't work, then just try something else.
Well, thank you, Mr. Leonard Marcus, for joining us here at the National Queen's Choice and say hi, and some habits don't die too young. And once again, thank you for joining us. I'm Robin Stienberg.
Thank you, Robin. Yeah, it's nice to meet you.